They spent millions in laboratories searching for the compound that could reactivate human metabolism. The leading universities in the world were involved: Harvard, Barcelona, Malaga. The research was exhaustive, expensive, and incredibly complex. But when a graduate student from the University of Girona compared the data with ancient Mediterranean medical texts, everything changed. The answer wasn't hidden in a pharmaceutical formula. It was sitting in kitchen spices, teas, and roots that grandmothers had been using for centuries. Here's what they knew. After the age of 30, something happens inside the human body. Metabolism slows down. Not dramatically, not overnight, but consistently, year after year. People who never struggled with weight suddenly couldn't lose a single pound, no matter what diet they tried. The same exercise routines that worked at 25 stopped working at 35. Energy levels dropped. Fatigue became constant. And the scientific community had no clear answer why. They understood the symptoms: reduced thermogenesis, lower basal energy expenditure, decreased fat oxidation. But understanding what was happening wasn't the same as knowing how to fix it. The prevailing theory was that aging simply turned off certain metabolic switches, and once they were off, they stayed off. Pharmaceutical companies invested heavily in synthetic compounds, stimulants, appetite suppressants, metabolic activators designed in labs. Some worked temporarily. Most had side effects. None addressed the root cause. And then, in 2019, a research team made an observation that seemed almost too simple to matter. In a small region of southern Spain, researchers noticed something unusual during a population health study. Older adults in Andalusia had metabolic rates that didn't match their age group. They burned calories like people 15 years younger. Their insulin sensitivity was remarkably stable. And their body composition showed less age-related fat accumulation. The researchers were skeptical. They rechecked the data. They expanded the sample size. The pattern held. What were these people doing differently? It wasn't exercise. Their activity levels were average. It wasn't caloric restriction. They ate normally, even generously. It wasn't genetics. The effect appeared across different family lines. The answer was in their diet, but not in the way anyone expected. They weren't following some revolutionary eating plan. They were simply consuming foods and spices that had been part of Mediterranean and traditional Asian cuisine for thousands of years. Bitter orange peel in their morning tea, red pepper in nearly every meal, ginger root, apple cider vinegar, green tea. Ingredients? So common, so ordinary, that modern nutritional science had largely ignored them. If you're intrigued by where this is going, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This discovery gets even more surprising. When the graduate student presented her findings to the research committee, the response was polite but dismissive. Correlation isn't causation, they said. People in that region probably have dozens of lifestyle factors we haven't accounted for. So she did what any good scientist does. She isolated the variables. She identified the 7 most commonly consumed traditional ingredients in the Andalusian diet that didn't appear regularly in control. Populations: bitter orange peel, red apple cider vinegar, Andalusian red pepper, Himalayan ginger, ceremonial green tea, berberine-rich herbs, and Korean red ginseng. Then she began testing their individual compounds in controlled laboratory conditions. The results stunned everyone. Epinephrine from bitter orange activated thermogenesis without cardiovascular stress. Capsaicinoids from red pepper triggered fat oxidation pathways that had been considered dormant. Gingerols and shogaols modulated appetite. Signals at the hormonal level. EGCG from green tea enhanced insulin sensitivity. Berberine activated the same. cellular pathways as prescription diabetes medications. Each compound worked through a different mechanism, but when combined, they created a synergistic effect that nobody predicted. The metabolic switches that scientists thought were permanently off, they weren't broken. They were just waiting for the right activation sequence. Of course, one study from one graduate student wasn't enough to overturn decades of metabolic research. Other labs had to replicate the findings. Harvard got involved. The University of Barcelona. Independent research teams across 3 continents. And here's where it gets interesting. Every single replication study confirmed the core finding. But they also discovered something the original research had missed. The timing mattered. When these compounds were consumed separately, throughout the day, the effects were modest, measurable, but not dramatic. But when they were taken together, in specific ratios, preferably in the morning when cortisol levels naturally peak, the metabolic activation was profound. Thermogenesis increased by measurable degrees. Basal energy expenditure rose without additional exercise. Participants reported sustained energy levels and reduced hunger between meals. Blood sugar stability improved. Fat oxidation continued even during rest periods. The body wasn't just burning more calories, it was changing its preferred fuel source from glucose to stored fat. Comment below. Did you know your metabolism could actually switch fuel sources like this? But why hadn't modern medicine discovered this earlier? The answer reveals something fascinating about how scientific research actually works. For the past 50 years, metabolic research focused almost exclusively on single compound interventions. Pharmaceutical models. Isolate one molecule, test it, patent it, sell it. Traditional medicine worked differently. It combined ingredients. It used whole plants, not extracted compounds. It relied on synergy, not isolation. And modern science had largely dismissed this approach as unscientific, anecdotal, impossible to standardize or measure. What these researchers discovered was that the body doesn't respond to individual compounds the way a machine responds to a single switch. The human metabolism is an interconnected system. Multiple pathways, hormonal cascades, feedback loops, redundant mechanisms that compensate when one fails. The 7 traditional ingredients didn't work because each one was powerful on its own. They worked because, together, they activated multiple metabolic pathways simultaneously. Thermogenesis, fat oxidation, insulin sensitivity, appetite regulation, hormonal balance, energy production at the cellular level. It was a systemic activation, not a targeted intervention. And the most incredible part? Every single one of these ingredients had been studied before, individually, in isolation. The research existed. The compounds were known. Scientists just never thought to combine them, the way traditional healers had done for centuries. So what does this mean? For the millions of people struggling with slow metabolism, stubborn weight, and constant fatigue? It means the problem isn't willpower. It isn't lack of discipline. It isn't even aging itself. It's that the body's natural metabolic activation systems have gone dormant. Not because they're broken, but because they're not receiving the right signals. The research showed that when these 7 compounds are present in the system together, in the right ratios, the body responds almost immediately. Within hours, thermogenesis increases. Within days, energy levels stabilize. Within weeks, body composition begins to shift. And unlike synthetic stimulants or pharmaceutical interventions, the effects are sustained as long as the compounds remain in the system. No tolerance buildup, no diminishing returns, no rebound weight gain when you stop. Because you're not forcing the metabolism to do something unnatural. You're simply reactivating processes that were always there, waiting to be turned back on. Now, sourcing all 7 of these ingredients individually in the right forms and ratios, isn't simple. Ceremonial-grade green tea, authentic Himalayan ginger, bitter orange peel with verified p-synephrine content, pharmaceutical-grade berberine. But if you want to explore a formulation that combines these exact compounds in the ratios studied by researchers, there's a link pinned in the first comment. It brings together all 7 ingredients in one place, based on the same scientific principles we've been discussing. This discovery represents something larger than metabolism or weight management. It's a reminder that the answers to modern health problems aren't always found in laboratories designing new molecules. Sometimes they're found in the wisdom that was never actually forgotten, just overlooked. For thousands of years, cultures across the Mediterranean, the Himalayas, and Asia used these exact plants, not because they understood thermogenesis or fat oxidation or insulin pathways, but because they observed that these combinations worked. Modern science didn't disprove traditional medicine. It just took a century-long detour trying to improve on something that was already effective. And now, finally, the research is catching up. The most profound part of this entire story? The compound that scientists spent millions trying to create in laboratories, the metabolic activator that was supposed to be the next pharmaceutical breakthrough, the solution to the global obesity epidemic. It was never missing. It was in the orange peels discarded after breakfast, in the pepper sprinkled on dinner, in the ginger root sitting in the kitchen drawer, in the tea leaves that cost less than a coffee. The body already knew how to activate its metabolism. It was designed to burn fat efficiently, regulate appetite naturally, produce sustained energy without crashes. We just forgot to give it the tools it needed. The metabolic switch was never broken. We simply stopped flipping it. And the most beautiful irony? The solution to one of modern medicine's most expensive, most researched problems was hiding in plain sight the entire time. In the simplest places. In the most ancient remedies. In ingredients that grandmothers knew worked, even if they couldn't explain why. Now we know why. And that changes everything. Subscribe for more discoveries that modern science almost missed. Comment what surprised you most about this research. And remember, sometimes the future of medicine is actually in the past.